सदाकते इस्लाम कुछ भी हो, जाएंगे हम जहाँ भी के जाना पड़े हमें, जाएंगे हम जहाँ भी के जाना पड़े हमें।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the special edition of this Beacon of Truth program, Ahmadiyya Students in the West. Today we will be discussing this topic of how Western society integrates within a challenging time for Muslim students, how that integration is brought about, and is there a true perception of polarization that exists for Muslim students in particular to integrate Islam with its secular education. Today with me we have some distinguished guests which I will introduce from my far left. Introducing Naveed Malik Sahib, who is the chairman of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Research Association. Next to him is Tahir Nasser, who is the UK president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Students Association. And last but not least, we have Jonathan Butterworth, who is a teaching fellow at the University College London. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, gentlemen. To start with, I'll pose a question in regards to this topic of Ahmadiyya students in the West to Jonathan. What are the challenges faced by Muslim students in the Western universities and colleges?
Well, I think there's one basic challenge for any Muslim at any time, which is to please God, and that's not easy. So the ultimate quest, the ultimate challenge is that. So let me speak briefly from the Quran, just to give some verses if that's okay. So the first verse, which I'd like to mention, is given here. Essentially it's about the remembrance of Allah. And so it's from Surah Al-Baqarah. So it says that remember me and I will remember you, and be thankful to me and do not be ungrateful to me. Again, later on in the Holy Quran, it's essentially it mentions the verse of worship. It says, I did not make man or jinn except that they should worship me. So I think when we're answering this, there are two basic things. I mean, well, firstly it's worship, and that's the fundamental purpose of our existence. Secondly, remembrance of Allah. It is a method of worship and to do this. But the basic challenge which students face are things which take them away from the worship of Allah, and as soon as you come away from the worship of Allah, then you're worshipping something else. And I guess if worship is the act of looking to emulate something and to take that imprint upon yourself and to reflect it, if you're not emulating God, you're emulating something else. And that's a crisis which any student's going to face. And as soon as they do that, they'll begin to suffer emotional problems, mental problems, they'll feel anxiety, they'll feel distress, they'll feel physical disorder. So this is the basic problem, because they will essentially begin to reflect habits, actions and negative qualities that they'll come across in university, which are, you can call them un-Islamic, but you can also just call them immoral, or you can call them lacking in righteousness.
So there's a lot to do with in terms of the morality as well as the spirituality that can coexist together. Just for our viewers, this is a live program, and you can contact us on the details that you can see via Twitter, SMS, email or phone us live. So this transmission is live for our external viewers to send in their questions that they want to ask in regards to this topical issue of Ahmadiyya students in the West and how generally Muslims integrate within a society of secularism. Coming back to that, Jonathan, so as you've mentioned, obviously morality is an aspect of it, but then you've got the ethical norms as well that can coexist, and this can bring maybe at times opportunities as well, but can be challenging for students that are starting out and have many different things that they have to look at within this challenging environment.
Yeah, certainly. It's very true. Yeah.
I'll move on to the next question, which is for Naveed Malik, who's our chairman of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Research Association. What is it that one can do on an individual level to sail through these challenging atmospheres that are created within these university environments?
So if I may just for a while just go back to the previous question. So the two kind of challenges I think which Muslim students encounter from personal experience. One is, as I think Jonathan has mentioned, the moral challenge, where the Muslim student arrives at an environment where the restrictions and the guardians which were usual in his life, in his or her life, are not there anymore. So they're in an environment which is in terms of their values is at dissonance with their own personal values. So there's a pressure to conform, to make social bonds, and that sometimes can result in degradation of moral values. The other aspect is a rather psychological aspect. So because we live in a society which perceives Islam as a force of violence, as a force of intolerance, unfortunately, the Muslim students, I think, sometimes when they arrive at university, suppress their Muslim identity to a certain extent. So I would say the answer to both those questions is to know what you believe in and why you believe in it. So to know that the true beauty of the Holy Quran is such that it impresses anyone who looks at it in an objective manner. If you have something which is beautiful and flawless, you want to show it off. You want to share it with all the world. Why in the world would you want to suppress it and hide it? So once we study the Holy Quran at depth and realize its beauty and realize that it touches every sphere of human life, then we will have that confidence to go out, to hold our own values with steadfastness and to tell others about it.
So the Quran is very comprehensive in terms of the teachings that it gives. It's universal in its message. It's there for the whole of mankind, as has been prescribed by Allah the Almighty to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And as you've already explained, in terms of there are many challenges which people can face, and you've gone on to describe some of them. I was just going to pass this on to Tahir Nasser Saab, who obviously is a student himself, a medical student in his last year. Is there anything that you feel you've experienced in terms of this yourself, and how you may have overcome those sort of ideologies that might be out there?
Penultimate year, first of all. Got one more year to go, I'm afraid. As for the ideologies and the meeting of them in your day-to-day life, I think one point that Naveed Sahib has really brought forth, which is really absolutely fundamental to understand, is that in this day and age, knowing the beauty of your religion is key. And the Quran talks about the different functions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. It says, he brings the signs and purifies them and teaches them the book and the wisdom. And in today's time, the wisdom and the understanding of Islam and the reasons behind the different laws and the different aspects of Islam have been forgotten by the Muslims, or they're unable to penetrate to its deeper meaning, because none shall touch it except those who are purified. And the purification occurs through a prophet. And so it's the promised Messiah ﷺ and his treasures that he's given to mankind, in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, he will distribute so many treasures that people will not even receive them. In other words, they won't take them. And those treasures are his writings. And I think if you want to understand Islam today, you cannot do it except by reading the promised Messiah ﷺ's works, because he has addressed all of those issues already which people will face in today's society, whether they're from other Christians, other Muslims, other agnostics, other atheists, and even from people, from the general attitude and the moral environment that is created. And if you have that before going into university and you have that understanding, then you will relish talking to people, and you will relish investigating why they believe what they believe and telling them about why you believe what you believe.
Okay, so following on from that important question, we come to another important question that's posed. Having spoken of these challenges faced by Muslim students, there's yet another important question that even within the Muslim communities in Britain, you could say even the wider network in terms of Europe and the wider world, what are the challenges faced by Ahmadiyya students? And especially in terms of your role within AMSA, in terms of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Students Association. How have you created an environment within this diversity and multicultural and cultural society in terms of integrating people and making them understand these challenges, but there's opportunities out there where a lot of engagement can also occur to engender people, give them the knowledge about what Islam is and what the true teachings about knowledge are. So if you can address that.
Well, in terms of the AMSA and what we do, we try and hold, first of all, it's a student society. And so like all other student societies, you have to run through the process of setting up through the union and things, which we're trying to encourage in different universities. And the way we try and bring together it has different features of an AMSA, and ultimately it's exactly the same objectives of the Jamaat as a whole, in that both tabligh and tarbiyat, both letting people know the message of Islam through events and through dialogue sessions, and also tarbiyat in terms of running your own Friday prayers at each university, which is what we're trying to do, and encourage all Ahmadis to go there. In terms of the challenges that are faced specifically by Ahmadi Muslims, I think the only one that can spring to mind is that Ahmadi Muslims are often brought up with a very, as it were, an attitude to be curious, and well, that should be the case. And in our religion, in our understanding of Islam, it's far less, we teach, this is the thing again, the wisdom underlying the book. And I feel that to a certain extent among non-Ahmadi Muslims there is this attitude of, you learn this because it is what you should learn, and that's what we do. And as a result of that, because Ahmadi Muslims are always questioning and querying as to the underlying reasons behind things, we often have a very much curious outlook even when we go to university, and we have less of a, to a certain extent, a mentality of just getting together in one group and only having that social environment. And so I think Ahmadi Muslims have a wide range generally of different types of people, but what comes with that is also the loss of identity of being an Ahmadi Muslim. And that's to a certain extent what the AMSA tries to highlight. In terms of its interaction with other non-Ahmadi Muslims, generally you'll find in actual fact non-Ahmadi Muslims, they're just not, they're normal people, and they also often very curious about what you want, what you believe, and why you believe what you believe, because they'll often have heard Ahmadiyyat, or often they won't even heard Ahmadiyyat, they'll have heard Qadiani or other terms, and by showing them your own example, you highlight what is special about Ahmadiyyat, and that should be, as it were, that's what the AMSA tries to promote, both through its events and through the Rabiat sessions.